Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's webinar from the Officers Association. This evening, we've got a webinar on Project Recce, which is all about a career in the building industry. Okay, first of all, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name's Fiona Jackson. I'm one of the career consultants at the Officers Association. Some of you have met me before, and if you haven't and you want a career consultation, a one-to-one career consultation, then please do sign up for one. You can go through our app or our website. I did a short service in the commission in the army many years ago, and I've worked in the commercial world since then for a small city-based company and also for the John Lewis Partnership, and currently, as I say, working at the Officers Association. What I'd like to do is just hand over to Loz Moore, or Loz as we call him. Loz, would you just like to introduce yourself to the listeners, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Fiona. Good evening to you all. So my name's Loz Moore. I was an officer in the Mercian Regiment for 11 years, and I left in 2016. I was actually medically discharged with post-traumatic stress disorder. And so it was a bit of a difficult transition for me when I left. I wasn't really sure what to do. And this is where myself and Fiona came into contact, because she was able to help me, mentor me. And so I do understand how useful the mentoring from Officers Association is. And myself and Fiona were looking at a variety of different things that may be of interest for my future career once my well-being had been stabilised. And so working together with Fiona and other people, started to move through the different options. And I tried a variety of different careers. I went into car sales, so learning about finance. I looked at various other office-based roles, such as with Amazon as an area manager. Many different routes that are open to officers, but none of them really satisfied me and gave me the same sense of purpose that I felt in the military. And that was the point that I discovered the construction industry. And so that's what I want to talk to you about tonight, and basically just emphasize why the construction industry is such a good fit for any people leaving the military. And
Okay.
Go on, sorry.
Sorry, Loz, I was just going to say sorry, thanks. Will I go on to the next slide? But carry on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Okay, yeah, sure. So that was me in my military guise, and then I left. I struggled initially with transition, but actually I've been able to get myself into a very positive position now. And that is a lot in part with working through the issues which were affecting my well-being and mental health, but then also being able to identify and find a new career which gave me that sense of purpose which I mentioned earlier. And that was in the construction industry, so I was able to use some of my LCAS funding to get a level 6 MVQ in construction contracts management. And that's an evidence-based course which I was able to build the evidence base from the work that I was doing as a project manager for a property development firm up in Stockport called Detail Homes. And so it was an initial steep learning curve, understanding all of the different elements of the building trade, but actually there was an awful lot of transferable skills which I was able to put into play once I'd got that baseline understanding of the industry. And so from there, realised that actually the pathway that I had been on from someone who was struggling to transition into a successful career in the construction industry is one that could be replicated for other people. And that's regardless of whether you're coming from an officer background or from the ranks, because the industry does have a range of different jobs available regardless of your previous rank. And that's what Project Recce does. It helps you to do the initial transition so that you're building a firm foundation to start from, and it helps you to understand the transferable skills that you have, and also to be able to release the things that are holding you back. And then we give a good solid introduction to the industry and help people similar to what Fiona does, but we mentor very specifically into different roles within the construction industry. And so we do that through a 4-week course which we run up in Manchester, and we're going to be growing that across the UK over this year and next. And also we still do independent construction projects as well. So it is a busy time, as Fiona can attest to. But this is a good thing to be doing, because actually it's helping other people along a similar path that I went along, with the likes of Fiona, with the likes of Help for Heroes and various other supporters of the military people who leave and potentially do struggle, and also to realise that construction is a very suitable new career for anyone leaving the military.
Thanks, Loz. That's really, really good. So, from what you said, you've got a lot to offer our clients, talking about the construction industry. So, just to sort of summarise what today's webinar is all about. So, you're going to talk about a case study pathway into the construction industry and the breadth of opportunity across the industry for officers, because as you said, it's not just for officers, all ranks, but there are plenty of opportunities for officers, the transferable skills and comparisons between the two industries. Also, it'd be interesting to hear about the academic apprenticeships available, and also your training course itself. So I'd just really like you to sort of comment on that, and also you put this really nice slide, and maybe to talk a little bit about residential renovations that you've included in here.
So basically what we're going to be doing is I'm going to give myself as a case study, but I'm also going to talk about one of the ex-Scottish Regiment soldiers who has recently been through our programme and has just had a very successful result just today. So it'd be really great to talk about him. Then I'm going to be able to talk about the different opportunities for commissioned officers from whichever service, and also just let you understand what it is that you can bring to the table, even if you don't have the experience. We can talk more about the transferable skills, and also what other options are available to you. So if you just want to go back to the other slide. So basically what we've got is we have a range of different roles within the industry, and it really depends on what type of area you want to focus on for your future career. You could be like ourselves. We work with small residential developments and renovations, one of which you can see on the slide. And so the complexity is significant, and also because you're dealing with a client on a day-to-day basis, you really are making sure that the job is run with that customer-facing appreciation, and this can be as detailed as helping them to choose the tiles for the bathrooms, or what type of window frames that they want going into their house. So you really have to have a bit of an eye for the different products on the market, what would suit that particular property, and most importantly, it's about keeping the client happy. If you're working on a larger site, more than likely you're not going to have too much dealing with the client. There'll be one person who owns the properties prior to sale, so you're not going to have a lot of interaction with the individual client, and that makes it easier in the sense that you're going to be building these houses to a set plan, and there's not going to be too much alteration to that, whereas when you're doing it for a private client, you will find that the job will change on a very regular basis, but that's an enjoyable part of it. It's being able to create a dream home for someone, whereas the ones that are on the slide now, that would be more about creating a series of properties to a certain standard, to a certain cost, but delivering them on time, on budget. And so from this slide you can see straight away that there's a number of different trades that will be interacting in order to make those properties happen. And you can see the barriers, which signifies that there's groundworks going on. You can see that there's windows. You can see that there's going to be roofers, there's bricklayers. There's a variety of different trades inside the houses as well. And you as the site manager would be coordinating all of the deliveries onto site. You'd be making sure that health and safety was being adhered to. You'd be making sure that all of the correct tradespeople were turning up, that they understood exactly what they were doing, when they needed to do it, and also making sure that they do it within budget. And that might sound quite a large task, but actually it's no different than what you would have been doing in the military anyway. you're dealing with a series of different people towards a common goal or objective, and dealing with small incidents, crises as they occur, and great transferable skills that we have as officers, former officers. The fact that we've been put in high pressure situations from the time that we were at Sandhurst or the other service equivalents, and actually we've been trained to be able to, work under stress, being able to deliver results to the highest standard with lots of different moving parts. And so you can see already why an industry like construction actually allows us to really sort of come to the fore in terms of our capabilities.
I would imagine from anyone's military career, they'll be used to the goalpost changing very, very regularly, and things not always going up or according to plan, or the customer or the senior officer changing their mind. So I would agree with you. It sounds as if it's a really good fit for skills that you've gained in the military.
Yeah, and I mean, you've just got to look at, clearly you're going to be working outside a lot, and if you're in a management role, you will be in officers as well. But similar to our roles in the military, there'll be a switch between, you'll be in the office doing the planning and preparation, you'll be doing all your contingency planning, you'll be doing your resource allocation, but then at some point you have to go out on the ground and you're interacting with the men, and you can just imagine the large heavy plant machinery moving up and down this avenue in front of the houses, and you're going to have cherry pickers which are going to be moving bricks up onto the top. So it's still a high risk environment with lots of heavy machinery, lots of moving parts, and so if you've been able to run a rifle range safely, you're going to be able to run a building site safely. And it's really being able to draw out those transferable skills and understanding. If you were a guard commander on a camp, then you're going to be able to manage a large building site in terms of facilities management. The planning, I use the 7 questions which is the Army's planning tool. I think that the Navy and RAF use it as well, but I still use that now when I'm starting to develop a plan for a construction project. It's a really useful tool. There's no need to reinvent the wheel if you've got a tool that works already. And so actually, so much of what we've done, whether it's creation of spreadsheets, whether it's the way that we do defence writing so that we can send out a quote, or we can use Excel efficiently if we've worked in an operations officer role, all of these things are so useful to a career in construction.
Okay, will I go on to the next slide?
Those first 2 are the type of work that I get involved in, and it may be of interest to some of you, but actually there's a whole different range of careers in construction to do with the commercial sector, and that can be anything from building Hinkley nuclear power station through to HS2, being involved in any motorway or infrastructure projects. There's Crossrail down in London. These are all really, really large ongoing projects, and you can see from this recent photo of the Manchester skyline just how much is going on in Manchester. So I imagine it's the same in a lot of the cities. We've got 5 or 6 new skyscrapers going up. There's large projects right across the city, and if that's the type of part of the industry that interests you, then there's certainly a lot of work out there. And to be fair, they're crying out for people like us, because they're starting to understand that A, there's a significant skill shortage, but B, it can be filled by quality talent coming out of the military.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is now, for everybody to listen, I'm going to launch the poll question. So what I want everybody to do now is to look at this poll question and then just click on what you think your answer is. So the question is, how many new construction roles does CITB predict will be created between 2018 and 22 across the UK? So you've got an option of 158,000 jobs, 5,000 new jobs, 6,000 new jobs. So I can see that people are already clicked on the answer. So Loz, basically what's come up is 33% think it's 158,000. And 50% of our listeners think it's 500,000, and 25% think it's 600,000. So can you just comment on those answers, please?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of the different options, I mean, even if we went for the lowest figure of 158,000, you can see that there's a significant number of jobs which are available to people entering into the construction industry. These are jobs that aren't going to be filled by people already in the industry. And so the construction industry, the government, the CITB, they all understand that these people need to come from somewhere. And this is where we believe that military veterans are able to provide that pool of talent so that they are able to enter successfully into the construction industry, demonstrate their competence and capability, and actually excel within the industry because of those transferable skills that they've developed in the military. Do you want me to tell the answer now, or are you going to?
Well, if you, yeah, you know, if you'd like to tell us, then what is the prediction? Because that's sort of context.
So CITB have just recently released a study trying to understand how much of a skill shortage there is across the UK, and it is actually 158,000 new jobs that are needed to be provided, and that's new entrants into the industry in the 5 years between 2018 and 2022. Now, traditionally, the entry models would be based upon 16 to 18-year-old apprentices or people coming from long-term unemployment into the industry. And we propose that there's a third sector which can actually provide that pool of talent, which is ourselves, the military veteran, and that would be led by former officers who are entering into the industry to provide that professional side of all construction projects within that period. So you can see that there's a lot of work out there, and it's about linking in with people like ourselves, people like the Officers Association, so that you can get those entry introductions and then start to move your career forward in the industry.
Okay, before you comment on Brexit, I just wanted to say something that to all the listeners. If you have got any questions as we go along, then please just type them in the question box. And what we'll do is I'll ask Loz the questions at the end. So, Loz, from that, then can you just make a comment about Brexit, which is pretty topical as to what's happening this evening?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's a massive concern across the country, but you know, significantly in our respect to this webinar now to the construction industry, because for quite a long period of time, certain parts of Europe have produced certain trades in abundance, and they move around where the work is. And it might be that you have Portuguese crane operators, or it might be that you have people from Eastern Europe coming in to do the tarmacking. And so the big concern now is that with Brexit, are people going to move to different parts of Europe to continue working, and what is the impact of that upon the construction industry here in the UK? Now, clearly something's going to happen in terms of the numbers of people operating in the specific trades, and so there is a real concern of how the construction industry is going to be able to limit the damage which is going to occur as a result of this large exodus of the labour force.
I mean, that's quite a worrying thing, really. And are you talking about it's more people specifically who are very skilled, or more people sort of say the less skilled people sort of doing the labouring side on the construction sites?
Well, no, it's right across the range, because you might have people from across Europe, you know, filling all the jobs from labourer, sweeping the floors of a large site, up to the infrastructure project manager. And so ultimately, a lot of the labour force has come from Europe and has always done so. And so now, if the rules change, and I think it's the uncertainty of not knowing how it's going to pan out, which is making a lot of the construction industry start to get a bit twitchy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, possibly we might know a bit more after tonight, but who knows? Okay, I'll just go into the next slide then. Ultimately,
Brexit is one of the concerns that we have in the industry. The other one is a very significant one, which is the construction skills shortage. And this is a legacy of people not entering into the industry from school, going into apprenticeships, taking roles in other parts of society instead. And so actually now we've got to a point where there isn't enough manpower, and if you go onto many building sites, you'll find that you can potentially have substandard tradesmen who are charging a premium because they know that there is a shortage. And so in order to alleviate that shortage, then there needs to be this large influx of individuals entering into the industry from, either the traditional routes or switching industry. And the switching of industry is where we come into it as military veterans. And as I've mentioned before in the webinar, I do believe that we are a really strong solution to this construction skills shortage. And you can see it on my third point. Veterans can provide that pool of talent.
From that, Loz, I was just going to ask, I mean, obviously, I see a whole range of officers at the Officers Association, but traditionally it does seem that, say, officers from the Royal Engineers are very suited to going into something like the construction industry. From your experience, with an infantry background, would you say the pool of talent is from across the services and not just from maybe some of the more technical corps or divisions within the other services?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, if you entered into the industry from the Royal Engineers, then you're going to be more than likely professionally qualified. So you'd be a site engineer, you might go into civil engineering, or one of the specific highly qualified parts of the industry. But actually, that's only a small part of the overall industry in terms of the management piece, because management takes up a significant part of the industry, and that's from the draftsmen, the quantity surveyors, the building surveyors, the architects, the designers, the infrastructure designers, the logistics managers, project managers, site managers. And so all of those people, there's nothing professionally qualified there. It's based upon the experience. And for example, you would do your Prince 2 or your AMP PMQ qualification, which would allow you to get on site. But other things like the SMSTS, which is the health and safety based qualifications, you could do as part of your LCAS prior to entering into the industry. And actually, that would be sufficient to get you onto site in a supervisory role. And then from there, you use your natural or your honed project management and man management skills, and you will start to excel anyway. And that's open up to anyone from across the three services. And it's more than likely going to be easier for someone who's been a commissioned officer to enter that way directly, although that's not to say that it's not available or open to people who've come through the ranks as well.
Okay. And I'll just be a little bit cheeky there, Loz, because you said about man management skills. We use probably they're not in the majority, but there'll be women in the construction industry as well.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, I've got two females on my next course.
Yeah.
And I know that is also a priority group. In terms of what's classed as a sort of underrepresented group within the military, and I'm sure that we're all quite aware of the topical conversation about females in different parts of the army now, and the construction industry is no different. It is open up to anybody who wants to do the job, and ultimately, it might put certain people off, but I'm sure that there's some men that would be put off by working outside as well. And actually, there's no discrimination in terms of age range, sex, gender, in terms of the jobs that are available that we're able to help people to get into. And we've not really found any pushback from that. And you might have a preconception that actually the construction industry is quite old-fashioned in its opinions, but certainly not on the likes of Balfour Beatty sites that you can see on the slide now. They're operating to the highest levels of diversity, social value, corporate social responsibility, and there's no barrier to access into the industry at all.
Good to hear. So this slide obviously is a case study pathway. Do you want to talk a little bit about that now?
Yeah, so this is one of the individuals who entered into our Project Recce program, and he'd initially left the One Scots and had gone on to a property maintenance course with a company which has now stopped trading, and he'd gained a little bit of experiences in property maintenance, but not enough to be able to operate at a professional level. However, what he did have was he'd been a PTI in the army, and so had a high level of confidence being able to talk to a wide range of audience members. And he was able to identify quite clearly different things that needed to be rectified. And in the industry, it's called snagging. So basically, it's where a job's been done, and then someone goes around and inspects it and makes sure that any issues have been identified so that they can be rectified. And we found that he was really good at that, but he didn't then have the ability to go and do the remedial works himself. But he did have a keen eye, and so we initially tried him out working for ourselves in our own property development project. And as I say, you know, because he needed further mentoring, which we didn't really have the capacity to do, but we knew that there was innate talent within him. And so we sent him to a role at the Balfour Beatty site, and he initially started off sweeping the floors, you know, and we did say to him, we're going to mentor you through this, but the most important thing to do is get your foot in the door and start where you need to start. And just to caveat that, when I first entered into the industry, I started off as a landscape gardener, and I did that because I accepted that I didn't have a trade, and so I needed to, you know, have a bit of humility and start somewhere. And sometimes we are required to take a backward step in order to take, you know, a forward route. And so I did that. The guy on the picture did that, and within a very short space of time, he was able to demonstrate to the right people what his exact capabilities were. And he's just been offered a position today in his hometown, which is significant wage, but also, you know, operating at a level that you'd expect someone who held a commission to be able to enter into. And he'd been able to do that because he's gone in, he's, you know, been prepared to sort of sweep the floors until as long as it took, and then was able to also seize the opportunities as they presented themselves. And actually, this guy's just getting married this year, and he's so over the moon with the fact that he was able to move forward into this new industry, this new career. He's happy, he's confident, he's feeling secure, and he's now acting as a mentor for us, with new guys coming through the program as well. So that's how we like to see it working, that one person will then go on and help other people.
That's really good. So how long would you reckon it took him to get from sort of sweeping the floor to where he is today?
I'll tell you exactly 3 weeks.
And that's amazing. That's really, really, really brilliant, isn't it?
And what that demonstrates as well is that actually, I think, he was a lance corporal in the army. And so if you can imagine how he's been able to use those transferable skills and demonstrate exactly what he's capable of, you could imagine how much someone who was of a higher rank would shine. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to start off with sweeping the floors, because actually you can start off at a slightly higher level because of your CV. But even if you did, you know, start at ground level, you would progress very quickly, because the people that you're up against in terms of competition are those people that you really stand out against.
I mean, that's a really an amazing thing. So it must be amazing for you to be part of that, but also amazing for this guy to have achieved it.
Yeah, I mean, we'd always like to, you know, have more successes in terms of the guy on the picture. But obviously, I think if you accept that if you can change one person's life, you are genuinely doing a good thing. So that's what we take from it. And we do have, you know, a number of other people similar to the individual on the picture, but there are some people that it's not as easy to help transition. But ultimately, that's part of what we're doing, and it'd be the same with your platoon, your troop, your squadron. You'd have different people of varying capabilities, and you have to sort of manage and mentor them in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably just following on from what you were talking about.
Yeah, no, exactly what we've just described there now. Able to sort of, and this is what we also do. When we're mentoring these guys, we're able to help them identify their own transferable skills. And once they've got it in their heads what they're capable of doing, then they're able to reinforce that and demonstrate that to other people as well. And that's really important, because that lack of construction experience, as any of the officers listening would know, when you take over a new job, you're lacking experience in that as well. But actually, the first 6 months you're finding your feet. The second 12 months you're flying, and then the next 6 months you're starting to wind down, preparing to hand over. Well, if you imagine entering into the construction industry in the same way, give yourself 6 months and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think you're right about seize the opportunities, because sometimes in life, you have to make your own luck. So you have to, I'm always saying to clients, network, and get yourself into an organisation that you like, and then network within the organisation to find the right opportunities to move your career forward.
Absolutely, we all need to be salespeople as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, you've touched on this, Loz, but you do want to just expand on this a bit more about the breadth of opportunities.
Well, I think that what we've got here is, as you stand now leaving the military, you are project managers already. So it's just a case of you find the end user requirements, and some of the companies that we deal with would actually put you through their own internal project manager qualification. Others of them would ask you to turn up with a certain qualification, and so it's always worth waiting to find out what they require, rather than going ahead and booking yourself onto a course using your LCAS funding, because actually you might be able to use it for something better in the future. So we are project managers already, and like I say, that 6 months will give you the experience and knowledge so that you can operate effectively in a new industry. So that's a given. Site management is slightly more complex, because you're actually, you're more in depth dealing with the individual trades and also the construction process itself. So you need to understand what occurs in what order and how it affects each of a part of the construction process. So again, you can pick it up, and you will do by being exposed to it on a daily basis. But that's more where the site management comes into it, and you be coordinating all of the manpower, knowing what part of the construction process you're up to, what materials that you'll be needing at that point. And so, like I say, it's a bit more complex, but actually, again, it's something that's really interesting for people to get into if they want to be a bit more hands-on. And then the professional careers, this is where we've been able to get an alignment with Salford University, who offer academic apprenticeships into the construction industry, and they're heavily subsidised, if not free. And so what we're able to do is provide that initial introduction and then further mentoring, so that we can help you identify which professional qualification you'd like to enter onto at Salford Uni. And you can do that either part-time or full-time. And then from the back of that, there are work placements which the university would put you into. So you'd essentially be starting a new career on the back of that period of education, back in an educational environment. And if those of you who have a bit of funding that would be able to see you through that period, it's certainly something worth considering, because you then would be a surveyor, or you would be an architect at the back of that period at university. So we can help with that. Obviously we can discuss further what the options are, and what would be best suited for yourself.
And how much do you think it's an issue, Loz, that people coming out of the military don't have commercial experience? So, if you're going into a commercial company, like you mentioned, Alpha BT, how much does that matter?
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, when I first left, I realised how little I knew about money. And so you really just need to accept that that's one of your weaknesses. You can't pretend that you know it when you don't, and you've just not been exposed to it during your military service. And even if you've been part of a procurement process, that's nothing to do with cost benefit, cost forecasts, understanding your money, understanding cash flow, and just understanding how important the cash side of any commercial operation is. But if you understand on your own SWOT analysis that that's one of your weaknesses, then you find an opportunity to go through a work placement program which allows you to learn that in a safe environment, rather than, and I think what will happen with a lot of people, if they leave the military and decide to set up a franchise, set up a commercial activity, and they don't really have that experience, there's a high likelihood that it's going to struggle, because they're not as well prepared for that side of the working world as someone who's been doing it for the last 20 years. So I think it's really wise to know what your weaknesses are, as well as your strengths, and then, find an opportunity. And I'd say it would be far better to enter into an organisation which is going to provide that all-round mentoring while you learn about the commercial side of things, rather than, for example, setting up on your own and having to deal with something that you don't really know a great deal about.
I think that's good advice, because I know it's a different sector, but when I left the army after 8 years as a captain, and I must admit, I sort of thought I knew everything about everything. And I realized when I joined John Lewis, the retail sector, that I knew nothing about anything when it came to money, like you were saying. And I think part of it, whatever career you go into when you leave the military, is just being a little bit humble and accepting that there are some things that you don't have experience of, and you don't know, and you've just got to listen and learn and ask questions and just be aware of that.
Absolutely. And just like that, it's just that personal SWOT analysis, really, isn't it? Understanding what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, your threats and your opportunities, and that's going to stand you in far greater stead than if you think that you know everything, because you'll come unstuck quite quickly that way.
Definitely. Okay, so you're going to talk a little bit about project management.
Yeah, well, I think that I've sort of I've touched on it quite a lot through the presentations thus far, but it's what our bread and butter in the military, and a project is a project. Obviously you need to understand what the nuts and bolts of a project are, but ultimately, if you can manage a group of men getting ready to go on operations, you can manage pretty much anything. And so if you have the confidence that you're going to be able to deliver, then also, again, going back to that SWOT analysis, you accept that, okay, Matt, I don't have the same experience of the construction industry as somebody else, so I need to do something about that. You identify ways that you can learn more about the industry that you want to enter into, but then all of the project management skills are already there, and it doesn't take a Prince 2 qualification for you to confirm that you're a project manager. You either are one or you're not, regardless of the qualification, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so if you're capable of managing projects, then you're going to be able to do that on any type of project across the construction industry. And I think that this is where you don't have to be an ex-Royal Engineer in order to enter the industry. You just need to be able to find the right opportunities where you can demonstrate, and it might be, that you take that backward step so that you can prove yourself in a junior capacity. But then once you've been able to do that, then you can move forward to the larger projects and keep going forward like that. So I would strongly suggest that if anyone's thinking, any of the listeners now are thinking about the industry, that is one of the most obvious routes for them to consider. And, obviously I or Fiona are going to be able to help you further understand what those opportunities and also the pathway towards that, the type of companies that will take you on are. So
yeah, I think that's a good idea, because also we know, I mean, you've obviously talked about Project Recce in your contacts, but I noticed the people in that photograph are wearing a Skanska jacket. That we've also got really good contacts with some of the big construction companies who we like to employ ex-military people, Skanska being one of them. So just to
that's amazing.
Yeah. So to move on then, I think you've talked about project management being a really good transferable skill, but you've also listed a few others here on this slide.
Yeah, well, no, these are more your transferable skills. So what I want you to understand is that if you can run a range, you can manage health and safety policy. If you can provide guard or duty officer, you know what to do with facilities management. If you've ever done 7 questions or planned an operation or an exercise, you're able to plan anything, including the construction of a building. Risk, health and safety and risk management, they're as important in the military as they are in the construction industry, because if you get them wrong in either, there's going to be a likelihood of injury or worse, and also there's going to be investigations which are essentially going to really come down on people who've not done it properly, and there's legal implications to that. We're all working to deadlines. There's a lot of moving parts, and so actually in both the military and the construction industry, you've got a lot of individuals, you've got a lot of different skill sets, and you need to understand them enough that you can bring them to bear when you need them, so that the overall objective or aims can be completed. You know, we're working inside, we might be working underground, we might be working on the coast, we might be working on top of hills, anywhere around the country. The construction industry will be operating. And so a lot of that knowledge that you're all right, that you can work outside and that you know how to manage yourself. And even just thinking about the welfare of the men, if you have a group of soldiers and they're not drinking enough water, then they're likely going to go down. And that's the same if you've got a group of bricklayers who are working outdoors in the summer and they're not drinking, or they're not putting suntan lotion on. They're going to stop being effective. And so that's where your leadership and management skills will really come to the front. You have to look after the welfare of your people, regardless of whether it's in the military or construction. And this is really where you'll be able to sort of stand out, because you inherently will understand how to deal with individuals, how to mentor them, how to provide for their personal development. You'll be looking at your own self-development. You'll be putting yourself on courses. You'll be putting your subordinates on courses. So it really is the similarity between you know, being a young officer or any rank of officer actually in the construction industry. It's incredible, really.
Okay, and so finally, you've given us an awful lot of information and food for thought there, Loz. So thanks. But just this slide about just summarising what you have told people tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we know from the CITB that there's significant skill shortage. The poll at the start of the webinar demonstrated just how, you know, significant that shortage is. And so the shortfall needs to be made up from somewhere. We as ex-military personnel are a really viable pool of talent to fill that gap. And so don't think that if you entered into the industry, you're just going to become a one-man band plumber. There's a whole range of different roles to suit anyone from across the military, but, you know, any rank of commissioned officer as well.
Okay.
And the industry does recognise its strengths. You know, we're out there in the industry finding the people that are able to listen, that are prepared to listen, that accept that actually the military are an excellent pool of talent. And so we've been able to develop these strategic partnerships. We've got a programme in place which helps you to get the initial foot in the door with the industry, and the pathway is there now. So it's just a case of getting people to walk along it.
Brilliant. And when we come to the last slide, then obviously you've got your link to your website. But I'm just going to finish up now, and there has a question come through. So in fact, I'll just look at that just now. So the question is, how does Project Recce differ from organisations such as Build Force or Building Heroes?
Well, Build Force and Building Heroes are more a mentoring setup. Well, no, in fact, I'll tell you how it does. Build Force is a mentoring organisation. And so what they will do is they'll signpost you without really interacting with you. You'll send your CV through to them.
Right.
They will then, so Build Force will actually provide specific trade training, like the joinery courses and the property maintenance courses that the guy in the yellow hybrid jacket did. But what we're doing is we're actually creating a very strong network, so that from the point that you get in touch with us right the way through to you get the right job for yourself, we're continuing to mentor you. You come on a course with us and that's tailored to the end user requirements, but also we're able to interact with you. We've got our own social media communities where that you can help to mentor other people. So we become self-supporting. And actually, my main aim in this was that I struggled with transition, and I couldn't find anyone to help me into a career, which is why I created this process to help other people follow my footsteps. And so this isn't a commercial activity. It's just purely about me continuing my belief in serve to lead that I picked up in Sandhurst. And I think that it's important for me to be able to continue to look after you know, whether it's my peers or subordinates, and help them to, you know, enter into a new industry so that they can essentially re-find that sense of purpose that they had in the military. They may lose at some point, and I'd like to help them find that, you know, and get it back again.
That's great. Thanks, Loz. And certainly, you know, it's been good for me to see how you've been able to, you know, develop your own career from when I first met you, a couple of years ago or so, to now. So thanks for that and for sharing your personal experiences. Finally, just wanted to say thank you for everyone who's listened. And I would say if you have any further questions, then forward them to me at the Officers Association, and I can forward them on to Loz, or you can contact Loz through the Project Recce site. And thanks very much, Loz, as well, for giving up your time to do this, because I know you spent quite a bit of time on the preparation, and we've discussed giving up your time to. So thanks very much, and good night to everyone.